Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's Slater Success Live. So we are doing this hybrid time, and it's really exciting. We are in our nonprofit series every year between Thanksgiving and New Year's. I love to promote a variety of different organizations that have a great impact on the world. And today, this organization is another one that actually means an enormous amount to me. I know several people who have been impacted by Crohn's and colitis. Michael Osso is the CEO and president, and I'm going to tell you more about him in a minute, but let me share something really special. We are doing a crossover series. So Michael doesn't even know this yet, but everything we're doing on LinkedIn Live, we are then putting out on Her Success Story, our podcast. So if you missed it today, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're not on Facebook, you're not on YouTube, you can listen to it on a walk, a run, in your car on Her Success Story. So for those Her Success Story listeners, welcome today. And for those followers of Slater Success Live, thank you for joining me on the first time we're doing the nonprofit series on this platform. So let me share a little bit about Michael and the impact he's made. Okay. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation is the world's largest public foundation dedicated to creating a world free from the inflammatory bowel disease, commonly known as IBD. Okay. Michael has been on a mission. He's been part of this organization since 2015, started as the chief of business development and moved into the president and CEO position. And one thing I love about Michael is he walks his talk and he follows through. Enough of me talking about Michael. Let's introduce him and come on, because you're a lot more interesting to talk to than me talking about you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to join you today, Ivy. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And for those of you who are watching us live, you feel free to comment, add some questions if you'd like, share it forward. Now, this is the most important piece of today. If you know somebody who has been impacted with Crohn's and colitis, listen and share this today. Michael, this is a big date, December 1st for Crohn's and colitis. You want to jump in there?
I do want to jump in there. It's a perfect place to start. Thank you for having me on December 1st, because every year from December 1st through the 7th is Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week all across the country. This was created in 2011 by a U.S. Senate resolution. And the resolution essentially helps to support the goals and the ideals that are associated with the Crohn's and colitis community. So we always plan a lot of activities for this week, and today, and being with you today is a great way to kick it off. So thanks for having me.
So in looking at it, how did you put yourself behind this mission? I mean, you have a history in the nonprofit world, but that doesn't mean when you're aligned with nonprofits, you also only work for nonprofits that mean something for you. So why this? Why you?
That is totally true. And I have spent my entire career in the nonprofit sector. That is over 30 years, I hate to admit. And in every
welcome to that age, Mac. Right?
Yeah, right, exactly. You'd never know it from looking at you.
So, and right back at you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. See, it's a mutual admiration.
Listeners, you now see why Michael and I get along so well. You can, you can just get it right off the bat.
We could just end the conversation right there, right, and move on. No, much more important things to talk about. So every job that I've had in the nonprofit sector has really been personally meaningful to me. It's one of the reasons why my entire career has been so gratifying and fulfilling for me. It has been a pleasure pretty much every day of the last 30 years to get up and feel like you're spending your time and your day advancing not just an important mission to so many people, but one that is personally meaningful for you. So I moved into health nonprofit, I guess it's about 16 or 17 years ago. And that initial move was made because I lost my mom to cancer, and I felt like the nonprofit experience that I had garnered working for performing arts nonprofits and for education nonprofits, that I could move that experience into advancing the mission of a cancer organization. And so I got my first job in healthcare at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And so I developed
I'm going to pause you there and give a shout out, because we had the executive director of Leukemia and Lymphoma Society on last year. So those who want to go back to our success story archives, you can still listen. We have been on a mission with nonprofits for five years since we started her success story. And it's not going to stop because it's an important thing to do. So you're at Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, also
Yes,
an organization near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and continues to be near and dear to my heart. That organization does tremendous work. And it really solidified, that experience really solidified my interest and passion for the healthcare sector broadly. And so when this opportunity opened up at the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and I have several dear friends, no family members, but several dear friends that struggle with Crohn's or colitis. And so I was both aware of the struggles of that patient community and the unmet need, and simultaneously also aware of the incredible advancements that are happening in the inflammatory bowel disease space. And that combination made it a really compelling and interesting opportunity for me. I've never looked back. I've been here for almost 10 years now, and I say all the time, despite the amazing jobs that I've had in my career, this is the single most rewarding and exciting position I've ever had. So it's a real pleasure.
So when you say the single most rewarding and exciting, I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they said, it is so important to whatever you do in your world, in your career, to truly have a passion for it. And so when you say this is it, this is one of the at the 10 years in, and it's still the single most. What does that resonate for you? What have you learned about the experience in yourself?
Yeah, and I think it's only increased over those 10 years, my deep appreciation for it. I think it boils down to a few things. One is that I'm so emboldened by the community of patients and caregivers around me. This is a community that has suffered in silence for many years. It's a disease that people continue to hide from those around them. There's a certain level of stigma attached and sometimes even embarrassment, unfortunately. And it's not always obvious to the viewer that the person before them is struggling with a pretty serious or sometimes very serious chronic illness. It's created a lot of passion and commitment and drive inside that patient and caregiver community. And it's infectious. So to be surrounded by people who are struggling in this way, who want to give their time and talent and treasury to advancing this mission, makes it a particularly exciting place to be. That, coupled with, a professional community of clinicians, other providers, researchers that have a very deep passion and relationship to patients, because in some cases they're caring for them over decades. That also creates a lot of enthusiasm in the space. And we are at a very exciting moment scientifically in the Crohn's and colitis space. There are a lot of advancements that have happened in just the past decade, dramatic advancements, lots of new drugs and therapies on the market that are really helping patients. And at the same time, we're expecting the next decade to be even more exciting and advancing than the decade that came before. So it also creates for a lot of enthusiasm in this space and a real opportunity to change people's lives. And that motivates me every day.
And, I'll share from a personal perspective. I know several people since their teens and 20s impacted by Crohn's and colitis, and they're young. And so when we're looking at a lifetime of managing this journey, a lifetime of managing this disease, and advancements that are happening rapidly at this time, how important it is for for the generation who are in their 20s and teens, 20s, and early 30s now, to have a solid, good life, for them to have the careers, the fulfillment, the family, etc., moving forward is really huge.
Yes, this is not a well understood statistic. So I feel like it's worth sharing today. And we don't have an exact number, but somewhere between 25 and 35% of Crohn's and colitis patients were diagnosed with their disease as children, teens, or young adults in their 20s. So to your point, so many of our patients, many of them have grown into adulthood since then, but so many of our patients are diagnosed as young people, sometimes very young people, and are looking at a lifetime of dealing with and trying to manage this disease. And the other thing that's true about the disease is that it relapses and remits. So it's quite a roller coaster ride for our patients. And sometimes they're doing well and are stable on therapy. And sometimes that therapy stops working and they flare again and could wind up in the hospital again or have surgery. So it's a tumultuous journey, and it's an uncertain one for most of our patients. This adds a great deal of stress and psychosocial challenges for our patient community. So imagine that happening to a young person, somebody in their teens or early 20s, as they're entering adulthood or starting their lifelong adult journey. This can derail a lot of our patients and create a great deal of difficulty and uncertainty.
Well, when you think about somebody going off to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, for the first time leaving home, and then a flare up can happen, and they're on their own. Their parents are in one place and they're in another. For the first time managing their patient care, and the stress of that family in that moment. In the same way, because I'm telling you, I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I go abroad
Mm-hmm.
in college? What would that be like in managing this? What happens as I get married? Right? What about my honeymoon? What about children? It's all these questions, especially in this younger demographic that are going to be in the journey for so long.
Ivy, you're so right. You very wisely have pointed out some of the biggest struggles. A lot of our patients are diagnosed just before they go to college or during college or right after college. That adds a great degree of difficulty to the disease journey. Some of our patients are on medications that you can't get out of the country. So to your point about doing a semester abroad, for some of our patients, that becomes an impossibility. And when you go to college, as you and I know full well, the temptations, the stimuli, the level of stress, the different foods and beverages that you might be
well and tactfully said.
Experiencing for the first time sometimes. These are all things that add complications to disease management. So, yeah.
So this week, okay, because this is a big deal. So what are all these things that's going on this week? This first week of December that's been dedicated to Crohn's and colitis. As the leader of the organization, what do you prep for? What is going on in the next 7 days? This is December 1st, day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so each year we establish a theme for the week so that we can advance issues that are really important to us. And so the theme of this week is make IBD visible. And one of the reasons for that theme harkens back to what I said earlier. These diseases can be quite invisible at times, both because it's not necessarily obvious to the person sitting across from you, as I said earlier, and there's an added motivation to keep it quiet, keep it to yourselves as patients. And so we recognize that the more we make Crohn's and colitis, IBD, visible, the more we can advance the work of the organization. So each of the 7 days of Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week, we pick a different theme and activity inside this overarching theme of IBD Visible. So for instance, today's theme is about spreading awareness of Crohn's and colitis. And so the action item we're asking people to do today is to create and share an Awareness Week infographic. So this is something people can find on our website, Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org. There's a whole host of activities and information on Awareness Week, but it will also instruct people on how they can create their own infographic and share it with people as a way of bringing more awareness to the cause and creating greater visibility.
So if you go to the website and then click on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or any social media of your choice, right, where you hang out, you can share it forward. You can make an impact.
That's exactly right. Yes. And as we know,
And it's
lots of
not a
people
big
have lots
ask.
of followers. Yeah. And hopefully it helps the person who's creating that infographic to both create it and also share it. But it certainly helps advance the mission of the organization, spreading awareness. And so I won't bore the listeners with every single day, but it's an example. And each day we have a slightly different objective and action item for people to undertake.
And so what we're suggesting is check the website daily.
Yes, exactly.
And to make it easy, you could also follow Crohn's and Colitis Foundation on your social media platform of choice.
Also true. Thank you for that.
So your vision, you said in the next decade, there's a lot of advancements. What is, you're leading an organization, you have 40 offices around the country. Like,
yes.
let's talk about the scope of this position a little bit, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You lead 40 offices. It's a foundation that touches millions.
Correct. Millions. Somewhere between 2 and 3 million currently diagnosed Crohn's or colitis patients living in the United States. And we aim to serve every single one of those patients in one way or another. And so it is a national organization, to your point, because we need a wide reach to get to all those patients. Mm-hmm.
So, in pulling back the curtain here a little bit, when you talk about a bowel disease, right? It's like, ooh, which is one of the reasons, and I'm making an assumption here, one of the reasons I'm assuming that it's the hidden, right? We don't discuss it. We don't tell people. We don't say, I'm suffering, yet, because that belongs in that other room very clearly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so important when you're battling anything that's challenging, especially health related, to draw a community around you for support.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think the disease often carries with it symptoms that people are embarrassed by, right? It's a digestive system disease and can cause persistent diarrhea and rectal bleeding and a lot of frequency of bowel movements and urgency of bowel movements. So those are things that people in our society, unfortunately, have learned over the years to be embarrassed by and feel a certain amount of shame. And so they kind of hide it. But these diseases also come with a lot of abdominal pain, often fevers, weight loss. People can have symptoms that go beyond their GI tract. So some of our patients have joint issues and skin issues, kidneys, your liver, eyes. So these are diseases that can come with quite a large number of symptoms and challenges and problems. And so, of course, we understand why people in our society can often want to hide it, but the more we can help people be aware of it, the more we recognize people will stop thinking of it as a bathroom disease and recognize that that's one of many symptoms that are causing a lot of pain and suffering inside this patient community.
And what are some ways we can support people we know who are suffering with the disease? So we're reaching a large community here today. And when you reach a large community, there's always a good percentage of somebody who knows somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is totally true. And one of the values of this opportunity, so I genuinely appreciate it. As an organization, we aim to do a lot of things. We aim to support research to advance new therapies and ultimately cures. That is embedded in our mission. And so we're always looking for financial support from people because We know that cures are not a matter of if they will come, but when they will come. And the more money we have, the sooner we have it, the more research we can advance. And frankly, the quicker we will get to better treatments and ultimately cures. But on the other side, we recognize that patients are dealing with a challenging journey right now. And so we know that we have to provide education to those patients and emotional support and really advocate both at the state government level and federal government level for public policy that will help their lives. So we want patients to be volunteers and their caregivers and friends, volunteers inside our advocacy program to help advance that legislation. We want people to come to our website to understand the education that they may or may not have right now and seek it either through recorded webinars that are on the site or to attend a live or upcoming virtual education program. Make sure they are empowered with all the information and knowledge they need to best advocate for their own care. And some of our patients are struggling emotionally, so they can join our online community or attend a local in-person support group, or children each summer can attend Camp Oasis, which is a camp program that we do in 11 sites across the country.
Wow.
That are dedicated exclusively to kids who have Crohn's or colitis. So we're looking to...
So they don't feel like that outsider.
That's exactly right.
So, young people, like, you start speaking to the younger you get, the more heartstrings it pulls at, right? But for a young person who's navigating something that's been hidden, to have a place to just be themselves and be comfortable in their own skin and gain how that impacts a young person's development on their inner confidence is massive.
It is massive. Many of our patients are meeting other Crohn's and colitis patients for the very first time when they come to camp that first year. So they don't even know anybody else who has Crohn's or colitis until they show up to this camp. Or know somebody that also has an ostomy bag and had surgery, or people that are on intravenous medications the way they are, or frankly, to the point we made earlier, kids regularly having to leave the games that they're playing to use the restroom. And so we have surveyed our patients many times, the kids who come to camp, and overwhelmingly, the large majority report that this experience is literally life-changing for them.
It is.
For all the reasons you just said.
I could 100% see that. And one thing that I'm hearing you say that is so important, and it's a bit of a cliche, and I'll own that, is knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. The more we know, the more difference we can make. So if you lean into a webinar, listen on something, a video, or if you know somebody, ask them questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always say it's interesting in teaching sales, right? We talk about being more interested than interesting. Mm-hmm. Lean into the other person. In this situation, and so often with all kinds of health and wellness issues, when you lean in and you're more interested and truly come from a place of compassion, it helps that person who is navigating a tough journey feel important, valued, and most importantly, cared for.
It's totally true. We talk about that concept of being interested more than being interesting in our fundraising efforts here, is an extension of sales, but also, to your point, in the way you can best care for and understand the journey of a patient is to take the time to allow them to share what they're going through so that you can support them in it and help guide them to the right education or emotional support program that they may need in the moment.
And that goes back to, if you know a little bit, right? You don't have to know everything, but if you give yourself that little bit of chance to be somewhat educated, when you meet somebody, you say, hey, I don't have all the information, but I have this resource you might want to check out. Mm-hmm. Funny story, I was on a call with a client earlier today, and they're very kind. They're like, hey, so what's your the rest of your day looking like? And I said, oh, I'm really excited. I'm interviewing the president and CEO of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. They're like, really? I know somebody. Like, how do I access that? And that was just one person today who
Right.
just said, hey, Ivy, what's the rest of your day looking like? And so it's little baby steps, and it's little bits of just being open and share and say, hey, I saw this. I heard this. I heard this podcast. I saw this live on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. I said, I think you might know somebody, or hey, I know somebody. I actually shared before we went live with a complete disclosure. I know a couple of people who have this, who have and battle with Crohn's colitis. And I said, hey, you might want to check this out. Michael's a really great guy.
Appreciate that. It's great. And I hope they'll learn something today, or maybe even more importantly, take this as an opportunity to visit our website or seek out an education or support program, to your point. It is about, in our disease particularly, it is a battle of awareness. We really are aiming through our efforts to increase the awareness and the familiarity with these diseases, what they mean, the struggles that people have because of them. So it's an important part.
So I'm going to throw you a curveball here. As a CEO, leader of an organization with hundreds of people, what's one leadership tip you could give forward for other people who are aspiring to make a difference in their leadership?
In their leadership.
In their leadership.
One
What is
leader
one thing
to
you have
another.
learned in leadership that has served you that you would pass forward as a tip?
I think a lot of people already know this, but probably the pandemic has underscored it for me more than any other time in my whole career, which is to genuinely take the time to listen to and hear what your employees are saying about their own experience. There are always ways as leaders for us to learn new things, take new approaches, care for the employees of the organization, support them in the ways that they need and want to. And maybe now more than ever, we have a serious obligation to do that. And I do it now in a variety of ways. So some of it is, we have 325 employees across the country. And some of it is hosting a full all-staff call that incorporates a town hall component where people can ask questions or make statements. And then sometimes, occasionally, I will set the call up to allow for anonymous questions or anonymous statements, recognizing that some people are shy about or concerned about what they might have to say. We now incorporate a full employee engagement survey every year. I've recently set up small CEO chats with different departments of the organization, 20 or 25 people that can have a direct conversation with me. So there are lots of ways as a leader for us to hear from our employees and take feedback and incorporate it into our thinking and activities. And I am doing it now more than I ever have, and it continues to be more and more valuable all the time.
I love that. Lean in and listen.
Yeah.
And give the platforms the opportunity for people to share in the way that works for them versus the way that works for you.
Yeah, it's back to your adage, be interested more than interesting, right? Yeah. So it's all an extension of really listening to people. So,
well, Michael, thank you so much for joining me here today on Slater Success Live and her success story, as we're simultaneously going to be releasing this.
Can I give one more plug, just because we have a few more seconds, which is that we raise more money in the month of December than any other month of the year. And we have a match going on right now. From now till the end of the year, we have an anonymous donor who will match dollar for dollar up to $500,000. So if we
Wow.
raise $500,000, this person will match it dollar for dollar. So visit our website and make a contribution, support the wonderful work of the organization.
And I will always say, in the world of nonprofits, we can give in a variety of ways. It doesn't always have to be the 500,000, $5, $50, 100, right? Everything adds up, and then showing up and sharing forward makes also an impact. So there's no judgment of what you can do financially. When you can, you do. And if that's not within your bandwidth, show up and give differently. Share this
Absolutely.
forward, make an impact. That's all within our power.
Appreciate
Mr.
that.
Osso, thank you. I'm very grateful for you joining me here today.
A pleasure, Ivy. Thank you so much. Nice to get to
In the
chat.
green room for a second. I'm going to close this out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on Slater Success Live and for listening in on her success story. This is an important time of year. It's a time of year that we can all show up that little bit bigger. Show up, make a difference, give a little bit. If it's financially, if it's sharing something, if it's helping somebody, be there, be present, be conscious of making a difference in everything we do. I'm very grateful for all of our viewers and our followers. So continue to make December and this time from Thanksgiving through New Year's a time that we can all make an impact on so much. I'll see you next time.